Well, knowing that we have limited time, if we want to go ahead and get started, and maybe some other people will trickle in as we move through. But yeah, thank you for to come to yeah, thank you to you all for coming to this career chat. This is sort of one of the first sort of events that we're trying to put on for the ambassador cohort this fall. So we're hoping to put together more events like this in the future, depending on your experiences here. I hope your work with your respective supervisors is going well, and that it's. I've heard really exciting things from all of them about the work you're doing. So looking forward to sort of touching base on that the next couple of weeks. But today we have with us Adriana Bankston, who is the CEO and managing publisher of the journal. And the main goal today is to give you all an opportunity to hear about what a career in science policy looks like, the steps to sort of get there, and any sort of really meaningful insights, sort of how you get started on that track. So we have some questions prepared, but if at any moment you have any other questions, feel free to raise your hand, drop them in the chat. We'll also leave some space open for general Q&A as well as we move through this. But go ahead and get started. Thank you, Adriana, for doing this. I think I really appreciate it. So sort of starting out, I guess from a high level, what drew you to a career in science policy?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Nice to see you all here. So I would say really the high level reason is wanting to have more of an impact than I could have on bench research, and also realizing, at some point I didn't want to be in academia anymore, but really was looking for a way to impact something that I cared about, and we'll get to that. But I think science policy is a great way to make a difference on an issue that you're interested in and you care about and you want to make change. So that's the main reason.
Absolutely. And sort of, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to your current role, both with the journal and your other positions? What did that sort of career path look like?
Yeah, so I got my PhD from Emory in biochemistry. At the time, I was still thinking about an academic career. And, it was one of those large umbrella programs, good program if you were interested in academic careers. Ended up just through a job search, ended up in Kentucky at U of L for my postdoc, which is really kind of nowhere, not much to do. And different options, and because in grad school it was kind of stressful. I was very focused on graduating and publishing and just very quick. But the postdoc is really when I sort of relaxed and started thinking, do I really want to be in this career? And so while I was there, I started actually organized a few workshops and webinar seminars for trainees, and I started a career seminar to get postdocs opportunities to think about what they might do, bring speakers to talk about different options. And so that's one of my interests, and still remains sort of the training aspect of making sure that grad students and postdocs have opportunities and ideas about what they can do afterwards. But that's sort of really how it started. And with the policy, I started dabbling a little bit into policy while I was in Kentucky with the Kentucky Academy of Science. So that's one tip, sort of, looking at local opportunities. I had sort of two large, seminal experiences that really helped in transition. One was getting involved with this nonprofit called Future of Research. You may have heard of it. So I was, up until recently, the co-director of the policy task force. But we looked at a project for postdoc salaries across the U.S., looking at how that was changing in response to federal labor law. This was in 2016, and it was a large discussion nationally. And that really kind of opened the door to this question of maybe policy might be a way to impact more postdocs, for example, and help them, also increasing transparency around academia and sort of academic changes. But that was sort of the first look at maybe thinking about policy as a way to impact more trainees as opposed to just sort of one university. And so that lasted for a few years. We published on that work. We went to universities and spoke about salaries. We were highlighted in the media, and it became really a big conversation around transparency around postdoc pay, and that was really interesting. After that, I got involved with JSPG actually probably 2018 or so, and have gotten then kind of shifted to being more interested in helping students transition into policy careers, and did a bunch of sort of workshops and trainings for that. And that's part of it was in the UC system. So I moved to California, did some advocacy workshops for trainees at different campuses, and again, sort of blending my interest in training and policy to help them think about how to leverage their research in talking with policymakers. And so after that, through that and the journal and other things, my interest in policy was really solidifying at the time. It was 2018 and my contract was towards the end. And so I kind of took the plunge and applied to all the possible fellowships and jobs in DC. And then was fortunate enough to be awarded a fellowship with the Society for Neuroscience, which was for 6 months. And so I moved cross country, did that, which is great. Really got hands-on experience on the Hill with advocacy and sort of writing different documents and really seeing how a society advocates for their priorities. And was there until summer of 2019, and then again, that was a hard transition. It's moving and trying to meet people in DC and network, trying to figure out what my next move was going to be, and ended up in my current position. So now I'm a principal legislative analyst with the University of California system, and it's a really interesting position. I'm happy to talk more about specifics, but it's somewhat come full circle, I think, because working on academic issues, we involve students in a lot of advocacy events. So a lot of my skills and sort of helping training them are useful now. We advocate for a number of research priorities, including appropriations and funding for research and large agencies like and a lot of NSF actually recently. And so I've been, I think I would say it's worked out well. In the end, it was a convoluted path, but everyone has different paths, and you'll hear from other folks in this chats about their path.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of as you were moving through that path, were there any, you alluded to sort of some like seminal moments that really moved you through, but were there like any resources or any sort of opportunities that you would really recommend to someone who's trying to get started in a science policy world?
Yeah, so the advice I usually recommend is sort of two-pronged approach, really looking at what there is locally that you can do, obviously getting involved with your science policy group, local workshops, organizing workshops and conferences is a really good hands-on experience to do. And you actually do a lot of that in policy because we do that in this job also, but there's a lot of event planning, that sort of thing. So local opportunities are good for hands-on, and then really looking at national organizations that work on issues that you're interested in, get involved with them, get on their committees, write for their blog. One thing that's useful is, and that's been actually really good for me, is scientific societies. As they have committees you can join. They have a lot of sort of professional development, policy panels, science communication offerings at their annual meeting. If you're already going to the meeting, which is one of the things I did. And of course, JSPG can be a good stepping stone for you in terms of publishing and learning how to edit manuscripts and that sort of thing, which there's a lot of writing in these jobs. So definitely we encourage you to follow the journal more if you're not already, and get involved in what we're doing.
Right, absolutely. And then you also mentioned sort of the importance of skill building and developing skill sets in the sort of the work that you're doing now. And I definitely think the journal is a key avenue for that. So, what skills do you think, or have you found that have been particularly important to build a successful policy career, and what does the journal offer that can sort of support building of those skills?
Yeah, there's a lot to be said here. So first and foremost, communication really in any way. I do a lot of writing, probably about 8% of my day, different kinds of memos and letters and priority documents. It's very different from academic writing, very to the point. You sort of put your main point at the top and then sort of build that out, right? So these are the kinds of things that we teach in the writing workshops. I think thinking sort of through my current job, it's very interactive, right? So you're always in meetings with different constituencies. So obviously, working for a university, we interact with higher ed associations, other institutions, nonprofits, other groups that want to work with universities and sort of build partnerships and that sort of thing. So, and of course with whole stakeholders. So you really are kind of on the spot all the time, and you have to kind of know your area. I think we do pretty well splitting up different portfolios, but so you're always either writing or speaking about research or whatever area you're working on, and that's really important. So I think the other thing, and this is something that we help faculty and students in the system to really translate their research into policymakers. So we organize a number of different advocacy events on the Hill, on different priorities on research topics. And that's something else to think about if you're interested in advocacy. The journal really, sort of alluded to this already, that we do organize writing workshops to help you think about an outline and how you might write your paper. You can also get collaborators from there. We organize webinars prior to the publication to really hear from experts about what's going on in that area, because obviously none of us are experts in all the topics that we publish on. And so having someone to really speak about what is the latest in the topic is helpful. Some other things we offer. So again, in the realm of training, in 2020, we partnered with UC Irvine on this certificate program in policy and advocacy. And that's been really helpful. It's free, virtual. You learn all these different skills, and at the end, come out with an elevator pitch, a policy piece, and so other deliverables too. But obviously, you can submit to the journal from there. So keep an eye out for that. It should open again in a couple of months. And then just mention a couple of other things. One is, in addition to publications, we have an editorial board. We're currently interviewing for this, for the next round of editors, which is early career. Again, great way to get involved and learn about policy topics. And the ambassador program, which again, we're here doing this, but if you're listening to this at another time, we'll likely offer this again in the future. And it's a way to really amplify what we do and get involved in other ways with the journal. And then finally, post-publication, and this is something that I think makes the journal unique, in that we really try to elevate published work through panels and the podcast and in other ways that really, I think other journals don't do as much to really elevate it. But because we have this sort of underlying educational mission to help build the next generation of leaders in policy and do these trainings, but also we want to elevate what you publish and get that out there into the world and have conversations. So we organize quite a bit of sort of virtual panels and conferences to try and get the work out there and that sort of thing. So a lot of opportunities for the journal. If you're again listening to this and you're not in the ambassador program, keep an eye out, apply for that next time. And just keep in touch with us on the things that we offer.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bounty of opportunities. It's just a matter of sort of really seeing what's out there, and we are all here and available to all of you to make sure that we can make those connections if need be. You touched on an area, about how in your current work, trying to segment out the different portfolios that you and your colleagues are working on. So that raises another important question in my mind of, within the realm of science policy, there are a variety of different categories and particular policy issues which a single person could focus on. How do you, or how did you go about finding sort of the issues that you're really motivated by and really interested in as you progress through your career?
Yeah, so one thing I would say is read newsletters from different associations or organizations. A lot of them are free. There's the FYI AIP newsletter, which really summarizes a lot of federal issues. Local issues, again, your university or your policy group may have a list. I would say social media was a big plus also, because once I sort of pivoted to the field, started following organizations that were on Twitter and individuals that were talking about the most current issues, that's always something to encourage you to get more active on social media, because there's a lot of policy conversations and different folks you should know about what they're doing, and that's pretty quick. If something happens in policy, it'll be on Twitter within 24 hours. For me, my interest in policy really has always been kind of around higher ed and university policy, having come from there, but really having this desire to help empower the next generation. And that's certainly my interest, but there may be other things you can do. I think I would encourage you to also read the journal, because there's a lot of things that, your colleagues have published on very timely topics, like climate and other things. So, but I think reading these newsletters and kind of understanding the landscape and what's going on and how you can get involved is a way to really be kind of at the forefront. And then, as I said, I think societies will often have kind of professional development opportunities and ways to actually do more hands-on things on a number of topics. And again, they write, statements sort of very timely as well. If something happens in the administration, they'll respond. There's a lot of, for example, animal research issues or other topics that impact research that they'll respond to. So being involved with that kind of group or committee, you can kind of see what the hot topics are and then and make some decisions from there.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is very much an exciting time and also a very pressing time for science policy. And so I think there's an ever increasing number of opportunities to get involved and to really sort of find the issue that you're really passionate about. So it's a matter of going out there and sort of seeing what's out there and looking on Twitter or on those newsletters, like you mentioned. And so the last question that we have before we open the floor to everyone else is about mentorship. So I think a key part of building a successful career in policy and any career field generally is having a mentor or team of mentors that you can sort of bounce ideas off of, get professional advice from, a variety of different things. Have you in your career had a particular policy mentor that's been particularly impactful to your career? And how did you go about building that mentor-mentee relationship?
So there's a few that come to mind, and I think that's something to think about, is that the mentors that you have may help you in different times of, pivots during your career. When I was in my postdoc, I think my first mentor, who was sort of non-academic, was I forget his exact title, but he ran the postdoc office at U of L, so he had a higher ed background. And that was helpful. And that's one sort of tip for you, is to think about, a mentor who was in an area that you're interested in and they work in that space. Ask them how they got to where they are. But that was really the first person. That was not my PI. It was someone in the university that was had a higher ed knowledge. And so I learned about the field from him and how did he transition, and the contacts that he had. So that was really helpful. That's maybe something you can do in terms of looking at who is at your university, maybe has a different background, than your PI or your peers in research. There's something to be said here, I think, for peer mentorship too, because science policy is such a varied field. There's folks from different backgrounds. There are, I think, increasingly more scientists in policy, which is nice to see, but also folks who are not from science, coming from tech backgrounds, or they may have a master's in policy, or they may come from a law background or something else that you're really not exposed to, but you learn from that. And that's something actually, it's a very, I would say I'm fortunate to have that in my office as well, because everyone sort of has different backgrounds and they really match well what they currently do. So find people who are not, don't have PhDs in science to transition, but they may have other backgrounds. That's a helpful way to learn from them, and how did they think about these policy issues, which may be different from the way you think about it from a scientist perspective. I always encourage people to do informational interviews with folks who have transitioned, sort of what we're doing here, but more one-on-one in depth. If you find somebody who works at NIH, for example, email them and say, like, can I talk to you for 30 minutes? I'm interested in policy. Let's talk about this. And really, you'll get a sense of, I think, the breadth of opportunities and different jobs out there and what they're all like. I think, so a lot of my mentors have been, once I transitioned, sort of peer mentors and people that were kind of going through the journey at the same time, whether from science or other places. The journal itself has provided this in terms of, the governing board. We have folks that are helpful for advising in terms of direction and strategy. Just having a position like this, and maybe that's something else to mention, if you're looking for leadership roles, just being in a role like this will really kind of challenge you to think about, where is the business going to go, right? Who can help get us there? And those kinds of mentorships, that's a different question than saying, I want to go into policy, what do I do? But how do you run the business? And I always mention this, but Shaylin, who's the former CEO that I took over the business from him, he's really been one of those people that has been there in terms of, business strategy. He's now one of our senior advisors, but, the way that I've worked with him over the years, sort of in communications and outreach, and now more business and strategy, he's been really helpful to have around. And again, he doesn't have a science background, so that's somebody that is really can provide a different perspective than the way I'm thinking about the journal and where we want to go. And the advisors are helpful as well. And then, so I think that's mentors, I think can come at different levels along the way. Peer mentors, more higher level, or different areas. But just look for people that are willing to help and talk to you at different stages when you're in transition.
Yes, absolutely. I will say, I think I speak for everyone on the staff of the journal, that if you look at all of our individual backgrounds, we often are all in very different sectors and outside of our work with the journal. And so I think everyone on staff would be welcome to be that sort of resource to all of you as you move through your own careers and get into the policy world. But those are sort of the main questions that we had for you. I wanted to open the floor and see if anyone had specific questions about specific careers or just general sort of policy, science policy related questions.
Hi. So I had a question. So thank you first, Adriana, for the talk and advice and sort of giving us tips on how to navigate our career. But I was curious, as an international student, like a lot of the job, like I'm applying for jobs right now. So like most of them, like USAID or the National Academies of Sciences or like the STPF fellowship, it's not open for internationals. So like, what's your experience or advice that you can give to international students who can get OPT work permit, but we don't have the green card yet?
Yeah, that's a hard question, kind of case by case. I mean, what I usually recommend is look for opportunities where you can volunteer. So like a lot of my experience has been, like I said, through societies and committees and the journal. We don't get paid to do this, and I'm learning a lot just by being in this role. So there are ways to gain the experiences that you need for the job, I think, as even while you're still in training. It's true that some of these roles are more restrictive. For example, government, I agree, some fellowships are restrictive. There are a few fellowships out there that you can apply to if you're not a citizen. You'd have to really dig through some of that. But and then I think also other I mean, it's sort of case by case, I think, for jobs, but some sectors are more open. I think nonprofits, you can find some jobs that aren't necessarily for citizens, as opposed to a government job. So policy, I think there's a lot of different sectors you can work in. So that's what I would say. I would encourage you to do some volunteering, gain some of these skills. You're already an ambassador, so that's one plus. And then looking for jobs or kind of employers that might be open to that. And again, some fellowships are open as well. So
Thank you.
Vipin or Suraj, either of you have anything? Yeah, feel free to turn on your videos if you want.
Hi, Adriana. Thanks for organizing this talk. I'm in Canada right now, and one of the things I'm finding most difficult is coming from an academic background and more like science and in computer science and engineering. I'm finding it very difficult to find opportunities or something, even in getting into nonprofits or volunteering in many places, because most places I've looked for having experience in social sciences like economics, political science, or law background or something. How do you transition when you're from a pure STEM background to some of these positions where the opportunities don't usually exist in some cases?
Yeah, I think what I would advise is maybe talk to someone who has a social science background. So I know less about that since I come from sort of biology. There may be also things you can do in terms of courses online or learning some of this. I mean, I had to learn a lot of this kind of, government and Congress 101, on the job, right? So there's things that you kind of, I think there's probably Coursera or some ways to learn maybe about different fields, and find people that are in or have transitioned or have done some social science training would be helpful. There's something else I'm gonna say. Yeah, that's really the best way to learn, I think, is finding somebody who has made the leap, who is in a different field. But I think you can also teach yourself some of this. I think societies also now have more, I think there is like a society more that's for social science, ways to learn some of this stuff through some programming that they have. That's all I can think of right now.
Yeah, I will add too, if you're interested in issues in the sort of technology policy realm, I think there's a growing number of think tanks or nonprofits or even sort of smaller, more boutique kind of shops that are getting set up in that space. And so I think it's part of it is looking for those kinds of smaller opportunities that might be out there, because there is a growing sort of interest in that space for people who are transitioning from sort of the hard STEM background into sort of the application focused part of it.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I've been trying to find, because I'm from computer science and trying to work on tech policy or something. And a lot of the times the requirements or options are very limited, or it's where there are very few. And I'm trying to, that's why I'm volunteering with various policy and trying to get the network and establish that. But it has been quite a struggle being able to do something of that sort. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Well, if not, I guess we can go ahead and sort of wrap things up here. Thank you again, Adriana, for doing this. I hope this conversation has been informative for all of you as it has been for me. We will hopefully get the recording up soon, and we'll let all the ambassadors know when this recording is live, so that if you weren't able to make it here in person today or virtually today, that you'll be able to check out this conversation after the fact. But as always, if you have any other questions or any other comments or want to get connected to certain sort of fields or policy areas, feel free to let any of us know on staff, and we will help you get connected and answer those questions. So thank you again.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.